Ladies and gentlemen, we were so excited tonight here on Sportswire Radio. We'd actually go on here a couple of minutes early because, it has been quite the evening here. I know everybody's watching UFC. Maybe you watched the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. Maybe you just watched, if you're like me, in the backyard, in the underground, Tennessee Backyard Wrestling's anniversary show. Or maybe you heard me a few hours ago shoot on different knuckleheads in the wrestling scene and maybe even spoke with a guy who calls himself a hardcore god and a boogeyman in the Midwest. Well, forget about all of that. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we are very honored in prime time, in the brightest lights, on the biggest stage, to have a man here that some would call the controversial one. Some would say is the king of death matches in some parts of the country. Some would say he factually made his debut in IWA's Deep South Southern Outlaws. Some would call him a hardcore champion, but maybe in a matter of days, some will call him a winner-takes-all hardcore champion at a Saturday Night Riot, where he takes on a guest who has been here so many times on Sportswire Radio that he could probably collect rent. I'll save that individual for a little while, but it's a real treat to have on our guest because he has been in the ring with a who's who of people, and he's even bringing some company here and we're going to talk about that because they're actually going to be in their first match together coming up here. Let me think, 14 days from now, and all the way in the great state of Kansas, Laredo, Kansas. We'll get into that, plus who knows whatever else. I can guarantee you, Sportswire Radio is the home where figuratively and literally all wrestling matters. And I know that our guest here, and our guest, I should say guest with an S, have done podcasts before. They've done a who's who of interviews and guys that are probably wanking off in their mom's basements or guys and gals that come on here and probably don't know much but had to look up at a roster sheet or look at cagematch.net or, had to try to get themselves over. But it's different here on Sportswire Radio, I can assure you. And it's also different because, let me think. I am sure a large number of people from the Resurrection Wrestling locker room is probably going to watch this. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, I have to give our guest that introduction that so many of our peers have gotten on this platform. And maybe I'll even bring up some names that our guests are probably familiar with and shared a locker room or two with and would probably be the usual suspects here in the hardcore scene. And I might even bring up one name that's all the way on the other side of the world that may have spoke to our guest. I'll get to that and some. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to give our guest the introduction that they deserve, and especially one opponent in particular is probably watching this right now and probably watching it with the TV put to the side. He's in his lounge chair. Well, he doesn't have a lounge chair, and he's probably got that beverage and popcorn. In fact, as a matter of fact, he probably spit his popcorn out of his mouth after I kind of addressed him, but it's time to give that introduction that the world has been waiting for, and especially because our guest has never done a show like this one. So let's get right to it in prime time. So with that, without further ado, here on the Sports Report, number one global sports show. He's the controversial one. His name is Kato, and his manager,
That got nice indeed.
Can I tell you? Now, I know you've done podcasts, and we're going to get to comments. We're going to get to people to say hello. People are just going to start tuning in. I told you that this would be different. We're in prime time. You're in the brightest lights on the biggest stage where we're figuratively and literally all wrestling matters.
And that's amazing. I'm honored to be on your show, and I appreciate it.
No, it's more like I'm honored to have you, but I wanted to let me just say, I know you've done a lot of podcasts before, but I want to formally say congratulations to doing the first one that'll be more professional-like, because this one is truly where the home of, I would say, many of your peers have certainly come on this platform many a times, and I'm sure somebody out there in particular is watching and tuning in, and so many other people that are obviously watching in the Resurrection Wrestling locker room. And obviously, I want to first of all give a huge shout out before anything else. Thank Joseph Tibbs. Obviously, Joseph Tibbs is the man that is connected to you. So without Joseph Tibbs, I would not be speaking with you. So I owe a major debt of gratitude to Mr. Tibbs. So let me just say thank you, Mr. Tibbs. But gentlemen and ladies, it is an absolute honor to have you both. So let's kind of start off here and maybe kick the ballistics and kind of go right into the jugular here. Coming up, Saturday Night Riot. For those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio, where all wrestling matters, you might want to say it's a winner takes all to be maybe the true hardcore champion and maybe the true king of the death match in certain parts of the country, and especially in the Midwest and the South. And Kato, and tell me what we can expect coming up at Saturday Night Riot for Resurrection Pro Wrestling. You're putting up your hardcore title on the line against the Resurrection Wrestling's hardcore title that was vacated. And certainly a man that wants to lay claim to it is a man that I could basically say has been here so many times on this platform, he could probably collect rent, and that is Mr. Mac 10. Tell us what we can expect coming up.
I'll tell you what you can expect. Brutality.
Yeah. I want to know.
Violence, blood. Mac 10 and I have shed each other's bloods a few times already.
Yeah.
How does
and he's a tough.
I'd like to know for the audience, how does his blood taste?
Tastes sour. Tastes very sour.
Kind of like when he drinks Mountain Dew, right? Because he always drinks the sour Mountain Dew.
He's always drinking Mountain Dew. You know, he's got a sour taste.
You know, there's some people that might drink water and just maybe bathe in water. And one of our guests, Ox McCoy, a few hours ago, maybe bathes in blood. But I think Mac 10 probably just bathes in Mountain Dew.
I think he bathes in Mountain Dew, but I think he loves bathing in his own blood. I mean, that guy can take an ass whooping and still keep on ticking.
Well, Jimmy Controversy found that out, and I'll get to him later on. So
no, I think without a shot of a doubt, Mac 10's a great player in this game.
Absolutely. No, all seriousness, Mac is a competitor. Absolutely. But
he underestimated Kato. He's going to realize who he stepped in the ring with, and it's me, and I got somebody that might help me out, you know?
Yeah, I've seen her around.
He called my wife a bitch. He called her a Jezebel. And I think he's going to have to pay and bleed for that dearly.
And you're in a foul mood to begin with, because at Fate or Fortune, you had some issues with Jesse Daniels trying to do that. So you were already, in a foul mood with the missus being messed upon. So you're already have that also in the back of your head, I think.
I have a lot of that in the back of my head. I think that aggression from that match is going to definitely come out in this match.
Let me ask you, though, this question. Obviously, it's a winner takes all, and it's interesting because you don't see a lot of this for hardcore titles. How important is it to you in a winner takes all match, and especially for Resurrection Wrestling, to take their hardcore championship? Talk to me about the importance of that for you.
Honestly, it's very important. When I became the BMF hardcore champion, that title meant a lot to me.
Sure.
But to go to Resurrection, to get put up on a different level than some of the guys in that locker room, and they're very good guys. They're very hungry. I'm
going to talk a lot about them in a few minutes. I would like to get your thoughts on some of them. Sure.
But to step foot in the ring with Mac 10 again, I think it's and for their title, it's a bigger honor for me to carry that title, to carry the hardcore prestigious title, to represent it everywhere I go. That's how much it means to me.
No
to
question
take that title to any company and say, this is me. Whether you like it or not, this is me.
So how, I mean, again, you've been in a lot of matches, you've wrestled a lot of guys, and I'm not going to turn this into a greatest hit show. I'm going to tell you to completely straight up, I'm not going to ask you what was it like wrestling the Brooklyn Brawler, because it's on YouTube. People can go watch the match. It's really nowhere near what you should be. So, I mean, I'm not going to go there with that. I think I'm completely straight up. If anybody knows me on this platform, I just go basically, I'm unfiltered, and I will tell you this truth. So, but let me talk to you in a different way. In terms of your career in what you do, and who Kato is. How big of a match is this for your career coming up here?
It's honestly a big thing for me. I think it also brings out the more hardcore deathmatch side of me that I never really got a full chance to bring out. Back in Wisconsin, I did deathmatch wrestling. Just never got the opportunity to bring out my side of me, of who I am. And Resurrection is letting me have free run with me of the person who I am. And so that means a lot to me. And that's why I'm going to bring out everything in the kitchen sink plus more.
Let me ask you a question on that. And I don't know if you've been asked in this in the past, but you talked about how you were in Wisconsin and what a small world the wrestling world is. I actually happen to know a lot of wrestlers in the world of Wisconsin. Boy, this is a small world. I'll save that maybe for later on. But you said that you weren't where you are then to where you are now. Do you feel like then where you are in your career that you're kind of hitting, let's say, a sweet spot in terms of just kind of how basically everything is coming into form? Because obviously you're just coming off also not long ago being an IWA Deep South wrestling there. And I actually have the match. I'll put it up on the screen in a little while. We'll definitely go over that. But do you feel like then what was different then that maybe is working now into why you have maybe kind of where you are, where you've hit this sweet spot? I'm curious about that for the audience.
I think back then, I didn't really travel much. I didn't really reach out to a lot of people. Really never had the right person to kind of help me, shove me into the right direction of where I should be as I am now. I think being just stuck in a certain area sucked. Not having the means to travel where I should have been traveling. That held me back. So I think, with a good support system that I have now, being able to travel and get my face out there more into this hardcore deathmatch scene helps a lot.
Let me ask you, you said something interesting. Obviously, we say hello to the missus there, but how important then has the missus been in your career in that basically evolvement where you've now been this guy that a lot of people, are on the radar for?
It's very important. I mean, she helped bring a different side of me out that I didn't think I had. She helped bring that certain personality that I never had before. Having her on my side is amazing. I mean, I don't think I could ask for a better person on my side than Naomi. She helped me develop a lot more darker side of my character, a lot more inner demons that I did have that I needed to let go and put that into my character as a wrestler itself.
How is it like for you, Naomi, watching him? Obviously, you manage him, and we're going to talk about, obviously, in a couple of weeks. So you're actually both going to be in the ring, I believe, for the first time together. But what's that like been for you in watching him up close and going into all these places and, figuratively and literally breaking down these doors?
I mean, it's a crazy feeling, and it's crazy to even be asked like these questions, to be in this position. But like before I met him, like I had watched wrestling and I had been into it, but after I got with him and I started kind of going to shows with him and selling merch and doing little things and becoming more and more involved as time went on, it's really cool to see him growing as a person. And it's nice that I can be that person that can show him different things, or different things that I'm kind of push him, I think, on different things that he might not have thought of or been nervous to try, whether it's character wise or stylistically or personality. And it's honestly, it's also brought me out a lot as a human being. Like I've been a very outgoing person, but getting in the ring with him. I was training for a while. I'll sum up a quick story. I was attacked by a dog.
I mean, go for it. There's people.
Yeah.
God.
We started training to do the tag team stuff, and I was attacked by a dog at my old job, and he broke my right hand, and it sucked. Like, I really was excited to get into it with him, but it's been fun being able to be a manager and be part of it with him and still do some things. But now having that opportunity to be able to really get in the ring with him and push myself and the things that he taught me, I think if this goes really well, it gives us a really cool new dynamic that we can work with and new trouble that we can get into, because that's always my thing. I love causing trouble.
It's unique because you don't see that a lot. I mean, in wrestling, we obviously, I'm not going to go down, memory lane, but even in the hardcore lane, we don't see this a lot. So I think it's a really, unique thing. And I'll come back to that, but I want to ask you a different question, Kato. I know a lot of people want to say, I'm going to get to them in a second, but you're obviously a part of Resurrection. You've been here now. You're going on a couple shows now. You've been with the company. It's an interesting locker room because you have a lot of young talent. Some of them have done some stuff in the independents. Others are still kind of, getting their feet wet. We have one guy, D'Angelo the Flame. I'm sure you heard a lot about him. He just wrestled, obviously, in a Riot in the Ring for NEW Underground Wrestling, and he's been the traveling guy. And, do you give advice to that locker room? Do guys in there ask? I know Mac is Mac. I'm certainly going to come to him. You can guarantee that. But in terms of that locker room, it's a very young locker room. Are you giving advice? I'm just curious on that for the audience.
I do give advice, and I try to put my 2 cents in, but I do it in a way that I don't try to. For me, I grew up hard in the business, so I was always getting shit on, and you fucked up or you did this. I don't want to break them guys down like that, so I'll talk to them. Hey, maybe you should try this next time, or I'll give them the advice that they need. I'm very open-minded for that because I feel wrestling from back then when I was training till now advanced so much that I think the younger talent definitely doesn't need to get harped on as much, but they need to have that guidance where they can be able to trust you and not just sit there and say, well, fuck you, I don't want to listen to you. I think for me, it's an honor for somebody to come up to me and ask me, well, how did my match look? That means the world to me. I mean, 20 plus years in the business, and I was training guys here in Southern Illinois, and it's great to get asked for advice. So I try to give my feedback and my advice all the time.
Let me ask you then a different question. And we're here, of course, with Kato, the controversial one, who's going to be coming up here wrestling and then ringing a couple of places. First of all, Resurrection Wrestling Saturday Night Riot. That's going to be up here very soon on their YouTube channel. We have their links below. Also, he's going to be wrestling on June the 15th. We're going to talk about that in a little while in the great state of Kansas. And he was just in IWA's Deep South for the Southern Outlaw show. We'll get to that as well. But let me ask you then a different question because of the amount of experience that you had. How do you feel wrestling has changed to break in versus, let's say, 20 years ago versus now?
The dynamics changed. I guess 20 years ago, I mean, people weren't doing so much as they are now. They weren't doing so much different flips and kicks. So to adapt to all of the newer style of wrestling, it's kind of crazy to start taking that all in. And as the years rolled by, when you take it all in, you're like, oh, that's easy to do. But in the same aspect, it's like guys that have gotten taught how to hit the ropes from back then till now, there's a certain way to hit the ropes and certain people just don't do it right. And it's like, all right, you try to correct them. They don't know. They don't get their footing right. So you don't want to that dynamic changed a lot in the training aspect,
some veterans come on this platform and they tell me, they use the analogy, slow it down, or KISS, meaning keep it simple, stupid. Do you believe in that same logic? Maybe if you tell some of these guys, whether it's in Resurrection as an example, that's something you believe in, kind of slow it down almost?
I personally believe in it. If you add so much into the dynamics of your wrestling match, I think that especially with the younger talent. I think that their minds are at a constant let's go, 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 go pace where it doesn't need to be like I say it like this. It doesn't need to be a TNA match. It doesn't have to have so much big
A Ring of
moves.
Honor vibe, that kind of fast pace.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to do the high spot, and
Yep. You don't need to have that, man. I mean, I've the last 10 years have been saying everybody should just learn how to go at their own pace instead of up, 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 up. Work at your own pace. If you're comfortable at your own
one
pace.
veteran told me that the line was that, well, don't you want to have your career lengthened by doing those things? You shorten your career. I think that was the line that stuck with me. We had a veteran come on, in the UK, and that was the line he would always tell me. He would say, Tom, again, I'm not a wrestler. So I know absolutely zero. I know nothing about wrestling, but I would just think at the end of the day, from what he told me is that, well, you want to lengthen your career. You want to be able to save yourself, save the big spots, because you're going to need that later on when, you might be at a certain age. You can do these things, but down the road, you're not going to be able to.
Well, and that's true. You want to save some big spots for a show that like an anniversary show or for like a pay-per-view show. You want to save them big spots for them kind of moments. You don't want to do them just on like if you're doing a weekly YouTube show or whatever. You don't want to constantly hit so many big things in a match because then what's the next match got to do? Get higher and hit more stuff. So you kind of want to keep yourself at a nice pace because otherwise you're going to be burnt out by the time you're 30.
Keep the big things special.
It's funny you said that. I want to get to comments, but I want to ask you one question because we talk about advice, but now that the missus is going into it, I'm curious for you, Kato. I mean, you're a guy's been doing this for a long time. You're obviously, going into a lot of different places. What advice do you give the missus now that the missus is stepping in, your basically arena here? What is that like? That could either go two ways. It could be the most difficult advice to give, or it could be maybe the best advice you could offer. Because again, obviously you're right now next to each other. I mean, that could be, who knows? But what's that like in the advice for you giving Naomi now?
I tell her the same thing. I tell her to relax her mind. Don't overthink things. If things get missed, just keep working. You don't need to have a 100% a 10-star rating match because it's the little things that can happen that make a big difference. You can hit a small little DDT and it makes it a big looking thing. But to calm your nerves down and just work at your own pace and let things come natural. Stop overthinking, stop using your mind. Like that, stop using your mind as of overthinking. Because
I think that in life, that's the best analogy. Sometimes when you overthink, you think too hard, you put pressure on yourself. It's like the same analogy again. I'm not a golfer, but I would always hear that from golfers. I mean, I used to bowl. I was a very good bowler. I was good enough. I could have been a professional. And it was like, okay, well, that was what I was always told. But let me get to comments because a lot of people want to say hello, and I want to get to some first of all. So let me go to say from the very beginning. A young man. Now, have you met this young man? Actually, you have met this young man, D'Angelo the Flame. Now, he's the guy that's, traveling like you, and he's traveled to a number of different places, and he just literally wrestled twice today. Once on TV, you've already seen. Another on TV, you'll probably see in a matter of days. And, a guy like him, what's your, feelings on D'Angelo the Flame, who everybody's talking about every time I'm on this platform? This kid gets brought up more times than probably you hear about Trump being guilty or not guilty.
D'Angelo is
different. I told you this show would be different. Didn't I tell you? I'm a man of my word.
No, it's great.
D'Angelo is a good kid. I like his style. He's got a very, very alert style. The kid is such a good talent. I have nothing but great conversations anytime I seen him. So yeah, he's an awesome kid, dude. I like him a lot.
I definitely like him a lot too, and I think a lot of people do, and that's why he's been traveling all over the place. Cameron Cage is another person in the Resurrection Wrestling locker room, and what do you think about Mr. Cage, who's apparently on his own redemption tour, and he's kind of doing his own Chris Cornell, Rusty Cage. He's a Rusty Cage toward Dustin Alexander. And any thoughts on Cameron Cage, who was my guest yesterday, by the way?
I seen some of his stuff. I like him. He's not bad. I guess for me, and hopefully you don't take it the wrong way, Cameron, but I just don't like the robe deal. You know, it's just something I don't personally like. I think they're kind of playing out, but that's okay. It's your deal.
Boy, Mr. Cage is probably blue in the face, and he might really want to be in a rusty cage right now and have the cage locked, and hopefully he doesn't cry like on Bad Motorfinger. But speaking of other people here, he's apparently a hardcore king. His name is Atomic Titan, and he's the hardcore champion in Tennessee Backyard Wrestling, and he says hello. So that's his way of saying hello. He's my guest tomorrow evening, but definitely not going to compare to you because you're Kato, the controversial one. He's here. He says hello. Speaking of people from the great state of Illinois, a guy, Anthony Steele, also maybe some would say a controversial figure. He's recently debuted in Resurrection Wrestling. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he says hello. That's his own way. He's also from Illinois, by the way. He's also from Yep. We love Illinois. And obviously I'll get to him later on. Get to him. Don't worry. I'll get to him later. I got something for you there. Want to say hello to my friend from Wisconsin, James Marshall. I don't know if you know a James Marshall. Do you know James Marshall?
I heard of James Marshall, man. That's my hometown state, man. I can't forget about my guys in the hometown.
He's a backyard wrestling legend there. He is currently the WCE All-Out champion. He is kind of their measuring stick. He is the one man in there that doesn't need a stick. He just goes out there in the ring, and he's been kicking butt there, and he does love you, and he's from not too far from Appleton, Wisconsin. So that's where his company is home, and he says hello. And yes, this is Anthony's show, but Kato's here, and no one's going to argue with that. It's okay. I can stay. Hello to Joshua Allen, of course, who's the owner and founder of Tennessee Backyard Wrestling. Just put on a great show anniversary.
I just added Joshua not too long ago.
Oh, he's a good man, by the way. He's a good man.
Yep.
I give a recommendation. He's been a very good supporter of mine. He may not always agree with some of my guests, but he's always been a good friend, and I appreciate my friends. Want to say hello to another man who, by the way, is from the Midwest, and he also has a company. It's called the IMF. It's the Iowa Midwest Federation Wrestling Company. His name is Soldier GP. He's been hanging around with the likes of some, hardcore and deathmatch veterans such as Ox McCoy, who's obviously from the neck of the woods in the Midwest. And Ox McCoy, by the way, has become a big fan of mine because I talked about how he basically bathes in blood. He lives to the Slayer song Rain in Blood, and he doesn't wait and bleed like Slipknot. But Mr. GP was on the show earlier today, and he's probably scouting. And how far is it from you from the great state of Iowa, by the way? Because they're always looking for new talents and legendary talents like yourself there in Iowa.
I don't know, 6 hours or so, something like that. It's not really far. I mean, we moved to Southern Illinois. That's about five and a half hours from Wisconsin now. So we're not that far away. We always are.
I'll get Mr. Soldier in touch with you. I think that's what it sounds like. If you're looking for bookings, I'll make sure that Mr. Soldier gets in touch with you. Mr. Marshall remembers that match I think that we spoke about not too long ago. Thank you very much for that. Want to say hello to my friend from the great state of Alabama. That is Mr. Hillbilly, who is from the great state of Hillbilly. He's from the Alabama in Gadsden, I believe it is. He is the Alliance Wrestling League's general manager. And I'm so tongue twisted. I was about to say Resurrection Wrestling, but I would get killed for that. I was supposed to be like, okay, no more interviews on Sportswire if I said that. But obviously, I told you, I'm trying a career in stand-up comedy because obviously this isn't going very well. But he does.
We've been laughing the whole time. All of it's good.
That's why I'm trying to do that. Speaking of people that are hardcore, he was my guest earlier, Mr. Yeah, he's a boogeyman of the Midwest. He's actually a hardcore champion in the IMF. He's also a champion in the state of Ohio. He's the DKW world champion. He's also a fellow interviewer like myself, and he might be looking for guests. And if he's looking for a guest, I'm sure Kato and Naomi would be available for bookings. But he also might be looking to wrestle you because he's wrestled the guy Damian Saint. He's wrestled a number of different guys out there in the scene. And, guys like Mikey Anarchy, Jimmy Controversy have talked about wrestling this guy. And he calls himself a boogeyman of the Midwest. And, you live in the Midwest. And obviously we love the Midwest here. And, if this guy really is a boogeyman of the Midwest, and I'm sure he can't really be a boogeyman of the Midwest unless he tries to conquer a controversial one that's a king of the death match in some parts of the country and yourself.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I'm always down to wrestle anybody who calls themselves the king and who calls themselves the boogeyman. I mean, hey,
He's a big man, though.
there's
This guy,
only,
he's big. He's big.
in my eyes, there's only one true boogeyman, and you know who that one is. That's the
Yeah.
guy who chews up the worms.
Yeah. Well, I was going to think about when I was a kid growing up in Brooklyn, New York, and I remember when I struggled to go to sleep, and I really did think there was the boogeyman because when I was growing up, there was like this boiler room, and I used to swear there was a boogeyman. I was like, no, that was probably like somebody was trying to rob somebody's house or somebody was trying to, who knows what, but that was growing up in Brooklyn, New York. Now it's 2024. But obviously, Mr. Black is also a part of this thing in the great state of Ohio coming up from July 5th to July 7th called Summer Bash. And apparently all of these hardcore wrestlers and other wrestlers are there. And maybe Mr. Black is scouting to see your availability in any of those dates. And I'll be sure that Mr. Black will, either way, regardless, be connecting with you because maybe he'd like to have a chat with you on screen or off the screen. But that's what he says in hello. Another person that wrestled today who's also very hardcore, 15-year veteran. His name is Jake Matthews. He calls himself the best on the card. He's the NEW Underground Wrestling World Champion. He comes from the great state of Massachusetts. Now, I don't know how far Massachusetts is from you, but he does say hello, and that really is his picture. And it's not Heinz ketchup packets. It's like you. He really does. When Jesse Daniels cuts you up and Tommy Trainwreck and whatever else everybody else does to you, it's really real blood and pain. Jake's one of those other guys that doesn't use art pastels like we did in class. Also here, the Booger Man, and just need to say this, D'Angelo LaFlame. By the way, D'Angelo LaFlame was just in his company, and I agree with you. D'Angelo LaFlame is definitely the man, but I also think Kato's the man, and we're going to put up Kato's links here in a second. Let's go with Mr. Tibbs. I will always help Kato. Him and Naomi are awesome to work with, and I think a lot of workers need to be more like him. Such a good dude and an awesome wife. He does say hello to me. So good news is, Mr. Tibbs.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Joe. And I got nothing but great things to say about Joey.
Yes,
dude. He's been there helping and in the grind with me and working side by side trying to get some things done. We just got a new music because of Joe.
I have a plug for that. Thank you for reminding me. I actually have a plug for that. So I may put that up on the screen in a few minutes, but I got a lot of
people have heard it so far, so that's awesome.
Yes. Also, this is Xavier Thorne. Now, have you met this guy, Xavier Thorne, in Resurrection Wrestling? He's now a psychopath. Did you meet Xavier Thorne at prior Resurrection shows? He was there, by the way.
I believe so, but again, there's so many people that I've constantly tried to stay.
You're a legend, so I get it. You probably don't even remember.
I'm terrible with names, so
you know what? I've heard that a lot, so I totally understand. Let's say hello here, Kato, brother. How are you doing on this lovely night? We met at the last taping, Hope all as well. So Cody Rogers is here. Is Cody Rogers related to Mr. Rogers? Remember Mr. Rogers?
I don't know, but I do know Cody. So yeah, Cody, it's great to see you again, brother.
Yeah, and good to see you, Cody. Good to see you in Sportzwire, my brother. And speaking of Incorporated Resurrection Wrestling, they want you to join the movement. They were here yesterday, but they're just saying hello. Don't worry about it. You're a busy man. They're saying hello. Want to say hello to a guest coming up here in a couple of weeks. His name is the Grim Reaper Joe Anderson, also from the state of Tennessee. And you'd probably love to meet him. He actually wears a mask every time he's out. No, literally, he always has a mask on. He has like gloves on, and he's hardcore, but not as hardcore as you, but still hardcore. But also, have to tip my hat to the guys and gals of the hardcore style in wrestling. And he wants to basically say, Atomic Titan, how's your head after the bionic elbow in the opener of Anniversary 7? Still got it, meaning Mr. Allen. And so he appreciates your work. And we love, I want to say it, by the way, I like to say it for a second. Thank you for what you do for this sport. I don't feel like I say it enough. I just want to thank you for everything that you've done. Going out there, true people like yourself are doing it for the blood, sweat, and tears, are going out there and giving us an opportunity to support and and, I can't thank you enough for everything. I don't feel like you get this heard enough, but let me just say thank you for everything that you've done for this sport. Thank you for all of the hardcore wrestlers that go out there each and every day, that put your bodies on the line and do this for the fans, do this for this great sport, and you truly are the definition of all wrestling matters. So I just want to say thank you for everything you've done for this sport. I don't feel like you get it heard enough, so I just want to say thank you. But Want to say hello to my friend Mr. Hardcore, who is legendary from the GWC days, obviously with Copper Dragon. Thank you, and I agree. Thank you, Kato and Naomi, for all you've done in this sport. Keep it going. See, and that's what we do here in this community. And also, let me come back to some more relevant comments. And Cody said he's not related to Mr. Rogers. So and yes, Xavier Thorne, you did tell me you were going to break the internet, and that was not his appearance on Sportswire. It was today's TBW show. And Grim Reaper said that he's more hardcore than the Hardcore King. Fair enough. And James does say for the love of this sport. Absolutely. I think it's a good time before I put some links up. I want to take this off the screen because I actually want to present to you something. I realize you do these all the time and these, again, these Johnny come latelys and guys interview you and, they got to put a scorecard up. But I wanted to do something for you tonight. Obviously, you and the missus. I wanted to present to you something that would maybe in a way show our token of appreciation to you. So let me pull this up on the screen because I think you'll get a kick out of it. It won't be something you're used to getting, but I think it'll actually play out to what you want. So I'm going to put it up on the screen only if you insist, Mr. Kato.
I insist.
Thank you very much for allowing me to do that because I am about to put this here on the screen only if my mouse would work here. That's the beauty of technology. There we go. So there you go. So for being the controversial one, I wanted to give you a certificate of appreciation. Yes, with my John Hancock, my logo, today's date. I will send you the physical copy, and I wanted you to have something a little different. I realize you do these and people, again, but I wanted to give you something special here for the audience that they could see it and just – you are the controversial one, and maybe you'll be the king of all death matches after you maybe win the Resurrection Hardcore title. We'll find out. But in the meantime, I wanted you to have this for the audience.
That's cool. Thank you, guys. Thank you, man. That means a lot, man.
Well, you deserve it. You definitely deserve it. And also, I want everybody to follow our friends at Resurrection Wrestling. And the links below, especially YouTube, Patreon, TikTok, Redbubble store. I'm a subscriber on Patreon. Please support them because this is what it does. You got to help the community. You got to support those out there. The guys do a great job at Resurrection. So let's support our friends who are certainly going out there and doing this every day for us. I want to get to a couple of things here before I get to some other stuff out there. But you have a show coming up here where you guys are wrestling together for the first time on June the 15th in Laredo, Kansas. Let's talk about it.
So I got this. I got WWX that reached out and said, "Hey, we're gonna put you in a mixed tag match." I said, "All right, who is it against?" And some guy named Drasic and some chick named EMT. Well, I know Drasic and Drasic's
basically after what you do to them.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I mean, they know the level of violence that I can bring to the table. But at the same time, there's another person involved now, so my violence has to kind of meet in the middle. And I got to try not to get too violent because I got the wife next to me.
However, if anyone did see the pay-per-view from IWA Deep South, I am not afraid to bleed a little bit if need be. If I need to put her in her place.
I have that in a little while. I'm going to play, so you're actually in luck because I actually have the match. So I told you we do things different on Sportswire.
15th, yeah.
So the 15th out.
I have the poster. I'm going to put it up in a second as you talk. So go ahead.
So we're going to face these two knuckleheads and hopefully put another W on the belt. And there it is, those two knuckleheads.
I mean, if you look at the picture, honestly, it doesn't look like much of a fight.
Well, I think so. One person looks like he could probably be getting AARP. The other person, after what you are going to both do to her, she probably will need an EMT, and I hope they have an EMT on site there in Kansas.
Actually, yes, they do. There is an EMT that is there. She sits in the crowd.
Oh, well, lucky for them, huh?
Well, they'll definitely need that.
Kansas is a good show. We always have a good time out there, though. They treat us right.
Yeah.
And WWX is doing their thing, man. So we got this month and next month out there in Kansas.
What's it like in wrestling in these different states? Obviously you're a traveling wrestler now, and what's that experience like? I'm curious for the audience. Obviously D'Angelo LaFlame is traveling like you, but a lot of us, don't travel. There's a lot of even in the Resi locker room, we don't really go and travel in different places. And what's that experience like in traveling to these different states?
Traveling, I mean, especially to Kansas. Now we're doing a 12 to 14-hour drive.
14 hours.
Oh my goodness.
Traveling can be a fucking fun time when you got good music playing and you're just cruising the road. Or the last time we went to Kansas was a horrible time because we ended up having about 3.5 hours of pure sand dust storms.
Oh my goodness.
Like no visibility whatsoever.
Yeah, it was zero visibility. I had to beat up on some jabroni who didn't know his ass from a hole in the ground. He'll never be back at the show, thank God.
That's a good
but,
thing. Good thing.
Yeah, traveling and traveling the road, it's good. It has its good times and its bad times. I guess sightseeing is one of them. Is a good time. Fortunately, we get to stop and see a lot of places. We get to do a lot of fun things after the show because most shows are either Friday or Saturday. So Sunday we do our family time. What we say is we go and stop and check out cool things, cool sights, and then we come home and next weekend we'll do it all over again.
I was wondering this question, as again, we're here with, of course, Kato and Naomi. You're going to see them in the ring here on June the 15th, also at Resurrection Wrestling Saturday Night Riot, amongst many other places. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, where all wrestling matters here. And if you're on Sportzwire Radio, please hit that sub button for us on YouTube. We're actually just at about 700 subscribers. And if I get to 1,000, I'm actually getting a new Underground Wrestling tattoo. So if you help me get 1,000 subscribers, I'll get a tattoo. But that's a different conversation for a different time. But I'm curious for you guys in this question. I know we're going to talk about IW. I'm saving that. But what are your goals both here in 2024 for the second half of it, now that you're wrestling together? What are your goals in that?
One of my main goals, and I've reached out to a couple people about it, but one of my main goals is to actually go to XPW and work some of their top guys.
XPW, interesting, because there's a lot of names I know that have worked XPW there. Very, very fascinating there.
And another goal of mine is actually to, honestly, get to Carnage Cup, honestly.
Interesting there, because there's some names that I know also in the Carnage Cup. What a small world.
Well, there's some big names on that show so far, so I'm excited for it. And then I think another thing I want to get to is actually having a heavyweight title at the end of this year for any company.
What would that mean to your career?
That would be the third heavyweight title I had, but this would mean a lot as my stage in wrestling right now. I don't know how much longer I'm going to stay in wrestling. I know I'm shooting for 5 more years, but who knows? I think within this year alone, I'm going to shoot for as many titles as I possibly can. But it would mean a lot to have a heavyweight title and to be able to say, hey, I'm going to carry the company on my shoulders for a while.
It's a great honor, and for your career, considering from what you're telling us, it would mean extra special because of, where you are in terms of, I guess, what the stage of your career is in, more or less.
Yeah. As I'm getting older, obviously nobody wants to believe that I'm 40 years old. But
happy belated birthday! I saw your birthday was a few weeks ago, by the way. Happy belated
birthday!
I told you it's different on Sportswire. I told you it's different.
But as I'm getting up there, I think, I'm going to start to accomplish more of my goals. I mean, by far already, being on pay-per-view was one of them. I was already on TV a couple times. About beginning of the year, we were on UPW's television network. We were on their television program. So I'm starting to get more and more as I go. But I think to be a realistic, a real, how do you say that? Realist. I want to shoot for as much as I possibly can in these next couple of years, and just get what I can get out. Give back to some of the other young talent in wrestling too. Help them develop themselves, and help push them forward.
And if you want to get in touch with Kato, you can follow him on Instagram. He's on Facebook as well, but we have the Instagram here right now. So if you're a promoter, if you're a wrestler, you want to book this man, you want to talk to him, whatever it is, hit that button there on Instagram. Almost all of us have Instagram at this point. So make sure if you aren't following Kato, please go follow him. Obviously, follow this man, talk to this man. If you want to get in touch with him, if you're IMF, if you're NEW, if you're any other promotion out there and you want to book this man, obviously talk to him and tell him that yours truly sent you. But that's those links there. And okay, let's take this off the screen. I want to give up to another plug here for our friends over at Boneyard Production very quickly. I'm sure you've probably heard of them now. And Boneyard Productions are kind of our one-stop source for underground and backyard wrestling music. And you got a list of different themes here. Obviously, some friends of the show and others. And actually something you were a part of right here, which was the actually, we can't play this one. So we're going to take that off the screen. That's the beauty of technology. But if you do want to obviously get in touch, there's some of the work. There's some of the videos. They are basically now the Jim Johnson of underground and backyard wrestling. And if you're out there, you want your own theme, you want some music to be designed, to help your character, help you get over, help you to be able to promote what you're doing. We all know how important music is. We all know how important it is to get the character, get the mood right. That's Boneyard Productions. Please go out and support them. They are certainly people that we want to go out there and make sure that we help. And certainly, I have no doubt if you're any other promotion, you haven't heard of Boneyard Productions, go hit the sub button, go follow them, and we'll take this off the screen here. But I want to actually finally talk about IWA Deep South Southern Outlaws. And as a matter of fact, I've got the match here. I'm going to play some of it for those that are listening and watching on Sportswire Radio very shortly. I want to get your thoughts and how big this was. Because like I said, I wasn't going to ask you about Sabu and Brooklyn Brawler because everybody asked you that question. Listen, I mean, everybody asked you that. To me, I want to talk about the current tense and, current tense. And here's the match as we're getting ready for it. And let's put it up. I think I have it right now. Boom, boom, boom. Let's go take this on and go off. And I'm going to get your thoughts as we're watching the match here live because that's the beauty of technology. And so walk me through this experience here that you're in. IWA Deep South. Obviously, a lot of guys have mentioned this here. And, for you, just talk to me about how big this was.
To be honest, it was actually supposed to be just a meeting. We were going to meet up and talk to Kevin and Brian, and all of a sudden we noticed Tommy Trainwreck's opponent wasn't there, and everybody was like, hey, put Kato in there, let him do his thing with Tommy, and let's see what happens. And honestly, Kevin loved what we did. And that sidewalk slam, oh, shit, that was on DVDs, by the way. That sucked.
I wasn't going to bring it up.
Yeah, those DVDs sucked. But, I mean, if you look at what we do in here, and that was the first light tube of the match. That shit was crazy. But it was fun. It was a big honor to be a part of a pay-per-view for a pay-per-view event. And to actually be outside and just to be whooping each other's asses in the ring was crazy. And there goes Naomi giving me the thumbtack bet, which I did kind of flop down. And
I wasn't going to bring it up because I was like, at first, I think she was trying to give it to you. You kind of fumbled it, and then you kind of got it, and then there we are.
Yeah, my hands are a little bit oily. I mean,
was it the weather?
I put a little.
Was it the weather?
I personally put a little oil in my hair, so.
Well, that could certainly play a factor, and just talk about.
But here I'm taking my barbed wire bat to his head. We did the cheese grater, which was nuts, and then here's some light bulbs. Now those things suck. Tommy told me those sucked.
Oh, really? So that's why you exactly used it then.
Pretty much. we were, the plan was to use limited amount of weapons to actually put on some wrestling. And of course, there you see me kick him right in the face through the barbed wire board. But yeah, I think going into this match, I was a little nervous because, like I said, I haven't really did a lot of deathmatch wrestling in quite a few years. So I was kind of feeling rusty and feeling nervous. But to be in the locker room with some of the guys that were in the same position I was in a couple years ago, and just getting to go and out there and just do our thing and not have to worry about so much politics, it was fun.
It's funny you said that. I have been railing about this the last few weeks on Sportswire. The politics of wrestling, I have no tolerance for it. In the backyard, I think it's abominable. And I think even in this level, it's even further of an abomination. I'm so glad that you said that. But, I want to go back to something you said as I'm watching this match. Obviously, this is here on the IWA Deep South Southern Outlaws. You can check it out. All you have to do is put a search and you'll see the same match here. But I'm curious because there's a guy that I know very well who's kind of reminds me of you a little bit, Mr. Hardcore. Actually, he is Hardcore. I'm sure you know Hardcore, who he is, right? And he's kind of at the same point in his career. I think maybe you have more ring, I would say, career matches, but he was kind of telling me some of the same things. He's kind of at a point in his career where it's almost like he's going to places that he didn't think he would go, and it's kind of maybe in a way, it's almost like your eyes are wide open, and it's almost like, in a way, maybe it is a rebirth. And, do you see some of the similarities that, again, Hardcore is a guy probably about the same age, probably comes from a similar mindset. I think you'd probably have far more ring experience. I mean, he's certainly doing different things. He's obviously, feuding with a man I'll get to in Jimmy Controversy. He's wrestled Man Pondo. But, I mean, I'm just curious, and, do you feel like at this point in your career that maybe because you haven't done as many hardcore and death matches as others, that it allows you maybe to kind of go into these things with eyes wide open?
I mean, with the years I spent in Wisconsin doing hardcore and death match, and then taking that long leap away from it, yeah, it gives me more of a eye-opening experience. I think now I have a better love for hardcore and death match than I ever did in the past. I was kind of pushed into it in the past, and I wasn't really comfortable at that point in my career. But now I'm at this point where I'm kind of sick of all the BS politics that go on in the locker rooms, that when I go to other companies like IWA, Deep South, Southern Outlaws, and it's nothing but love and have fun and just don't put people in the hospital, I think it gets to that point where you're like, this is comfortable. This is where I'm home. And being what me and Tommy just did here just proves it. It just goes to show you that we could add wrestling in a hardcore death match and still use the violence and make it a great match.
I'm curious, and for you, Naomi, obviously getting into this world and, obviously seeing a lot of this hardcore and deathmatch wrestling and hearing some of the things that Mr. Kato has said. I mean, what's it like for you up close watching a lot of this stuff and, observing it? What's that like for you?
I think there's a lot of things I look at differently being part of it versus being on the outside. There's different precautions and things that you don't think that different people might think of, which is comforting in some ways. And honestly, there's a lot of it being part of it. It gets you so much more excited to do the things that you might have been a little more apprehensive about before, because you see it done so much, and you see, I don't know, you just see so much more being part of it, that it just makes it so much more fun, and the risks are always so much more rewarding.
I think,
yeah, go ahead. Jump in, Kato, first. Go ahead.
I think a lot of people don't give hardcore and deathmatch the credit that it deserves.
I agree.
They kind of look at it as they're just beating the shit out of each other and they don't give a fuck. It's not really that, and it's not.
You're about to hit me.
Yeah, and I'm about to hit Naomi upside the head.
Boom.
But people push that shit off on, well, you don't know how to wrestle. That's not the point. The point is we're doing this not because we don't know how to wrestle. We obviously got in the wrestling business one way or another. And for most of us, like me and Tommy, we know how to wrestle, but we also love the hardcore and deathmatch scene. And a lot of those naysayers and haters, they can all kiss my ass, because obviously what you see me and Tommy doing right here, we did everything perfectly safe and good. We didn't fucking go to the hospital and kill each other. We did wrestling moves. We put hardcore and deathmatch together, and we had a great match.
And people loved it.
And I think that the people that are afraid of the hardcore and deathmatch scenes are the ones that talk the most shit.
I agree 1,000%. I say it all the time. To me, what you all do out there, I think it deserves tenfold of a respect, because you guys have more of a technique than anybody else. And that's why I'm going to get to some names in a minute. But I want to ask you one more question, Naomi. Do you ever have to separate being a manager from being the spouse? Because obviously, you're there, and I know you're getting used, but I'm just curious, because it's different. Because if you were just a manager, okay, fine. Or you were just I guess a intergender tag team partner, one thing, fine. But you're actually, obviously, this is, your husband. So do you ever have to separate though, and kind of like say, okay, you might get afraid? And I'm just curious for that, for the audience.
Yeah, no, I get that. And no one's ever asked me that, so it's kind of cool that I can.
Didn't I say, I keep, not to beat it over like the drum. I said this would be different. I will not ask you the usual standard routine, boring questions.
Yeah, no, I love it. Yes and no. Like, there's times when I feel like the wife side of me kind of sees different things, where I'm like, hey, instead of doing this, how about we do this? Because this could happen. Because different people, I feel like if they're not as trained or not as used to doing certain moves, and they get excited and they want to do things, he's been around for a long time. And again, with the slowing things down, people want to do a lot. And I think that when you do a lot, it can cause a lot of injuries, because you're trying to do too much and you're not paying attention to what you're doing. So that wife side of me kind of comes in, where I'm like, hey, maybe we cut this out and this goes on, or whatever. I mean, I don't know a lot, but that wife in me interjects sometimes. But then at the same time, that other half of me is like, just do your thing and just tell me my job, and whatever. We'll deal with it when it happens.
When I was taken out of the tag team thing, and you were with somebody else.
Yeah, that one was hard for a minute. Yeah, we were in a group as a manager with another person, and then they took me kind of away from him. It was okay, but it was like, I was still like, well, I did this with him. So that one kind of made it really difficult, because I obviously went with my husband, but it was hard to put him in a place, because it's like, I get that I'm a manager, but I also was, my number one manager was for just him. So like, inevitably my one manager position should be dedicated to him, whether it was as a team or not. I should have gone with him, because that was my person. So it's a very hard line to kind of teeter on, but I feel like I do my best and just kind of take it one show at a time, because you never know what is going to happen any day.
No, and it's why I think it's different, because again, it could impact what Kato wants to do, and he's obviously the veteran, and there are things, but again, it's a really unique thing, and you don't get it a lot. That's why I'm always curious for this. But I have a lot of people who want to talk to you, and let me go about and say a couple of different things on behalf of them. So let me come back to them, because I am way behind here. Also, here, let's go. Xavier Thorne says Naomi should be hardcore.
I am hardcore. I still have a scar. If you want to see it, and go watch the match and look for blood.
I think Xavier Thorne is just waking up to his own internet revenge tour. James Marshall makes a good point. Travel is a big obstacle. Not everyone can hack it. You talked about the traveling. Also, James wants to talk about the fact that he remembered you falling off the cage in UPW Steel Cage Challenge. What happened? So what happened there for the audience? What happened?
Oh my goodness.
So UPW did a war game style cage match. One cage, like, I don't know, 10 to 12 wrestlers.
Comfortably, yeah, easily.
And the cage, it was a great match. It was fun.
Until then.
Mickey. I think that was Mickey Doyle's last match.
Maybe.
Oh, I heard of Mickey Doyle. Okay.
Irish Mickey Doyle. It was. I think that was his last hurrah. And I'm proud to say I happened to be part of that, and it was awesome. But to get up on that cage, the cage stuck above the bar. I had a tough time standing on the cage, so I kind of leaned down, and Peter B. Beautiful got up there and just shoved me down. And as I'm falling down, it looked like I'm falling sideways, but I'm looking at the table that I'm about to crash in onto the concrete ground.
Where I was standing,
and
watching.
As soon as I hit, my head kind of plopped on the concrete, so I kind of blacked out for a second. Yeah, that was a tough bump.
Oh,
That was another one of those wife manager hard moments right there, watching him on top of a cage, on top of a ring.
We're almost like Mick Foley when Mick Foley came back to the back. They had that whole documentary years ago, and then he went back out there. You were probably Colette Foley there. So that's, certainly I could see that. And also Xavier wants to say that he has now been inspired by Kato and Naomi to do hardcore and be hardcore in the hardcore division in Resurrection Wrestling. So that's very good. Yeah, well, he is going to do it because he was here Monday and he really did say he was going to do it. He doesn't like the politics. I agree. And Mr. Hardcore was undefeated in GWC, and he's 43, actually, Mr. Hardcore. So Mr. Hardcore is 43.
Nice.
He's a legend. He's a legend. There's a difference between that. Yeah, I don't want to tell you about that company. It'd be a complete waste of time. There's a company that the one guy can't run the ropes. Another guy, I don't want to get into it for it. There's no way to do that. Want to say hello to my buddy from the great state of Tennessee, Mr. J. Cal. He's the headshot J. Cal. And Jake, I hope, is doing well. Jake is a great guy. He runs the Underground Wrestling Alliance and also a musician. And I want to give him a nice little plug. He's been going through a couple things. I hope everybody keeps him in his thoughts and prayers. Great guy. Mr. Titan, again, who's the Hardcore King, who's my guest tomorrow, wants to then say hello to you again. But it's Kato, not Krato, by the way. It's
yeah, you spelt the name wrong. K-A-T-O.
Well, I'm going to give him a pass because he's my buddy. But, I want to, in the interest of time, I know I've got to bring up Mac 10, and I'll get to that, but I got to ask you about some names. Obviously, that I'm sure you'd love to maybe do a dance or two with. First of all, I have to bring up Mr. Obey. Mr. Obey, a man that came on my platform about 6 months ago and talked about having a gun and bringing it to a show. I was curious if you have any thoughts on Mr. Obey. El Brujo, he goes by sometimes, Damian Blanco, and has different names, almost as many names as Madonna and Prince have had in the past. And I hope he doesn't shoot me after this. But what do you want to say on it?
Obey is a very mysterious person.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
I think we would have fun tangling up in the hardcore deathmatch scene. Who knows? It might happen soon. But Obey seems like he can take a lot of shit. And I'll give it to Obey, but I don't think his woman wants to cross Naomi.
Yeah, Obey might be an interesting guy, but I think I'm going to give the edge to Naomi here. I got to bring up a guy, Mikey Anarchy, which I'm sure you've heard of. Mikey Anarchy, a guy that came on my platform, and you could probably play connect the dots with his back. Obviously, he's the new GTS Hardcore champion. He was their Intercontinental title holder there, and he's had his own wars with Damian Blanco. He's also had a war with a guy, Jimmy Controversy. I'll save him. My good friend, Jimmy Controversy, which I know is not saying much to some, but he has been another regular in Resurrection Wrestling. But Mikey Anarchy, interesting guy. You have any thoughts on him and such? Because he's going to be also wrestling on the 15th of June at a show for supporting. But anything about Mr. Anarchy that would perk your interest?
Yeah, I've seen him once or twice here and there. I actually think he's a pretty good guy. He's got some good talent, and I definitely would like to see what he's got in the ring.
Interesting. I could certainly pass a thing or two along. I brought up Mr. Hardcore, which I think you have a lot of similarities and different reasons for, but anything you'd maybe want to go in the ring with him. Again, a guy that, is more on the northeast side, but has obviously traveled. He's actually holds some victories over Jimmy Controversy, although everybody's beat Jimmy Controversy, I suppose. Everybody wins over him, but Hardcore, I think that'd be such a fascinating match between you and him. I think you have a lot of similarities personality-wise, just in general. I don't know why, but Just what do you think?
I see where you're going at with the similarities. I definitely see that. He's got a really crazy, unique style too. I
Oh my
like
God!
his
Jimmy
style.
Controversy put a syringe needle up his lip. I'd like to remind you about that.
Yeah, I did see that. I did see the clip of that. However, I think our match, if we got a chance to work each other, would be a lot better than just needles.
I would hope so. I mean, I would really hope that would be the case because I would certainly think that we might have to really need the coroner there. But yes, hardcore is an interesting guy. But again, I think there's a lot of similarities there. Obviously, he's a guy that's supposed to come back onto the platform very soon. Actually, that's why I wanted to bring him up. And I got to bring up somebody real quick who's from the UK. And he's a man that I kind of mentioned is actually a good friend of mine. And he's wanted to travel. He knows hardcore very well. And another guy that I see a lot of similarities to you with in Radu Bulat. Radu Bulat is a guy in Pursuit Pro Wrestling. He's a guy that, is another veteran, worked his way around the scene. And I'm just curious if you would ever want to wrestle some British hardcore guys and such. I know that's been brought up to you in the past, but this is one I actually know a lot of people overseas there. I was just wondering what you think on that.
I definitely am fucking interested. I've been keeping up on some of the UK hardcore. Damn, they can bring some shit. And I believe I talked to, I think it was him or one other guy who was supposed to be coming down, maybe to try to see about
coming in.
I don't know if it was for Resurrection or if it was for IWA, but I definitely would like to cross paths with them.
Yeah, I think the British scene, just to really elaborate on that for a second for the audience, I think it's a lot more difficult for them because hardcore wrestling over there is very frowned upon because of a lot of it is like, there's a lot of, you talk about politics, the politics are 10 times worse there. So a lot of these wrestlers, they kind of don't like it. They don't understand what hardcore wrestling is. They don't understand the science of it. They don't understand. So it gets a far worse reputation than it does here. So I think like guys that go out there and do it, obviously one of my other friends is a guy, Jam Dog, who's another veteran hardcore wrestler. I think that would be, another name you'd probably want to take a look at. I could certainly talk to him about it. His promoter is a very, very dear friend of mine, but, traveling comes into it, scheduling and hotels. I get all that, the cost of the flight. So I thought that would be another name, but I got to bring him up last before I get to comments. And that's my friend. And I know people would say, really, it's not saying much, but he's been on my platform 3 times. He messages me regularly, and he's actually from my neck of the woods. He's from the state of New Jersey. I'm from the state of New York, and that's the sergeant, the murder worshiper himself, obviously, Mr. Jimmy Controversy, who you have shared a locker room with in Resurrection Wrestling. And, I was wondering if, if you have a thought or two on the sergeant, because he does certainly, pay attention to these shows. I can promise you that.
Jimmy. Controversy. I'll say this. Jimmy, he's a tough ass dude too. He's one of those dudes who I definitely would love to have the honor and pleasure of being in the ring with. Jimmy and I share a similar, upbringing, I think, and him being from the East Coast and me being in the Midwest, well, we got to make it happen sometime. And I think the battle of controversial versus controversy needs to go down.
Interesting, because, I could certainly alert Mr. Controversy of this. He is definitely a man that, I will be, again, I know people would say, well, you shouldn't be admitting this live on the air, because, again, a lot of people, especially after what Grim did to him in GTS, but I can certainly alert Mr. Controversy of this. As a matter of fact, I'll alert him this on Instagram because he does listen to these shows on Instagram. As a matter of fact, he talked to me about one individual that was sort of misrepresenting his company's name, but I will certainly leave that at that. But I can promise you that Mr. Controversy will definitely get wind of this, and I'll make sure that he does hear about this. And I'm sure other people want to tune in. I have a lot more comments, so let me get to them here. First of all, Joseph Tibbs wants you to wrestle this guy, Atomic Titan, by the way, who's been coming here in comments. He's a hardcore king from Tennessee Backyard Wrestling. So Mr. Tibbs maybe wants you to take this hardcore king and maybe turn him into a softcore queen and maybe put him into the, to the woodshed. I don't know if I would agree with that, but that's what Mr. Tibbs wants.
Tibbs, I will take anything you throw at me, and I will turn them into pretty much the next bottle of wine I drink.
What are you drinking? What flavor is tonight?
It's actually a red wine. It's a California blend, and I love it.
Why am I not surprised? Red wine, blood looking. You like to have blood. Why am I not surprised? I should never have asked that question. I should have just thought
You
you
see
would have.
my wall?
A nice blood red wall.
Nice blood red wall.
I do remember as a kid my father drinking red wine. I was like, why was he drinking it? Now I know the answer all those years later. Atomic
I only
Titan
like
says,
red wine. I only like red wine because sometimes when I eat like some jerky or chocolate and have some chocolate, sometimes it goes good with the chocolate and jerky.
I say. Atomic Titan says maybe he'll do it when he goes to Resurrection Wrestling, but he does try to redeem himself and say, what about GCW?
Wow.
Ooh.
It's great that he said that. See,
yeah.
I've been trying to get in the works of that. I actually talked to Matt Cardona a little bit, not much because he's kind of a here and there guy, but I've talked to the ring announcer a little bit about it, and I don't know. I'm just kind of figuring out who else to put my foot in the door with.
Well, I mean, I know we're live, so I'm going to say it right now. GCW, I have absolutely zero pull for, but have you ever thought about GTS?
The name came across my mind once or twice, so I'm thinking about that.
Well, if you ever decide about that, I could actually, in that one, point you in a certainly more friendlier direction. I can't do anything for GCW. I don't have that kind of pull, but yes, if it was ever something you decided, I could actually, certainly point you in a direction that you might actually maybe get some assistance to.
Well, that'd be good, but I've been on a show with Nick before, Nick Cage.
Yep.
But it was in Wisconsin, and that was a long time ago. So, hey, shit happens. Things change over the years, and pretty much would love to get my foot in the door and wrestle Matt Cardona.
Oh, I think, listen, he's the guy right now. I mean, it's made his name, more than anybody else on the independent scene. He's doing hardcore wrestling, and he wanted to be Mick Foley's final opponent, but Mick Foley said he's not wrestling now in one more match. So maybe you'll be available. So that would be a good idea. Russians are pretty hardcore, I heard. Yeah, I think they are. I don't know what the tie is, but okay. I'm not going to mention this name to you. You don't know him. Don't waste your time. Also, maybe, Kato, you could take Atomic Titans title. Yeah, you could do that in your sleep, but I'm going to certainly leave that at that. I'm not going to for you because you're a busy man and you don't want to waste your time on inbreds. But obviously, he'll be in the commentary booth for if it is you and Titan. We got that. Okay, so obviously, also Mr. Titan would like to say, screw you. You put your hands on an employee tonight. He'll take his job soon. Let me leave that at that, but I want to come back for the remaining thoughts on the show in Resurrection Wrestling Saturday Night Riot. Let's come back to business because I haven't formally. I'm saving the biggest for last, and maybe or maybe not the best for last. And Mr. Mac 10. Now, Mac 10 is obviously going to be your opponent coming up here in Saturday Night Riot. He had a lot to say about you, and what else would you maybe like to say to Mr. Mac 10? Because I'm sure that he's out here, and I'm sure that, he's paying attention after what you said about him not long ago.
All right. Well, Mac 10, first and foremost, this title is called the BMF title for a reason, the BMF Hardcore Championship. I'm the baddest motherfucker around today, besides some of the guys I ran into at IWA. But, Mac, if you really, really think you're going to get this title and take Resurrection's hardcore title away, you got another thing coming because I'm going to beat you like the dog you are, Mac. And at the end of the day, I'm going to be the one standing for the 1, 2, and 3. And that's that.
He calls himself a hardcore werewolf, and he just all of a sudden comes out here and he goes into a different dynamic. You buy into that? You buy into this believability of him as a werewolf?
I mean, he looks like a werewolf.
He's kind of hairy.
He is hairy.
I'm going to plead the fifth on that, considering how much hair I have on my face. But go ahead.
No, I like your
Hey, no, I
hairstyle.
was
You
gonna
actually
say-
got it good. You got
I
that
dig
Wolverine thing going on, man. I
I
love
have
it.
heard that before, but Mac 10 doesn't have that going on.
No, but no, I think Mac 10's gonna really have to do something dramatic to take me out of the game.
Some would say that he's even a deathmatch werewolf. You're the king of the deathmatch around parts of this scene. You're the guy that's just been on Deep South. Now, he's been in Carnage Cup. I mean, can there be really two deathmatch kings around here in this part of town? And is it big enough for the two of you?
I'll tell you what, I don't think it's big enough for the two of us, but our egos are pretty much the same. When you kind of sit side by side, we think the same, we act the same, and honestly, it's going to be a tough fight. And I'm kind of hoping that, you know, maybe you'll see a little something different out of me. If not, hey, I'll still come back around to chase that title.
If he were watching this directly, what do you want to say to Mac 10?
Mac 10, you better have an army behind you, because this time there's not going to be a double knockout. It's just going to be me beating you down and me standing over you, getting that 1, 2, 3. That's all that matters.
You just said that he needs to have an army with him, correct?
Yep.
He needs to have somebody with him when this match takes place, or even if he were to respond. Now, obviously, you've said something that's rather interesting there about Mr. 10. And obviously, as I alluded to at the beginning of the show, Mr. Mac 10, he's here so much that he could obviously collect rent on this platform. If Mr. Mac 10 was right here waiting to say something to you, should I bring him up, or it's your turn? I know you're obviously a legend. You were just on Deep South. I know you're traveling all over the country. So if you don't want Mac 10, I can certainly say Mac 10 can come on tomorrow and respond during Atomic Titan spot. No problem. But it's up to you. You're a legend, sir. Obviously, the missus is here. And obviously, I know you obviously both have, a lot to go to do and a lot the weekend to get ready for Sunday, big day with the family. Sunday's family day. So it's up to you. Would you like me to tell Mac 10 to maybe say, oh, you sure? You sure you want this? All right. So you know what? He's here. The deathmatch werewolf has arrived. Mac.
What's up, buddy?
So
I need an army behind me to beat you, right?
yes, sir.
So if I need an army behind me, you still need that Jezebel behind you, don't you?
Oh, he doesn't
I
need
will
me.
turn around and make sure that bitch does not interfere in our match.
I'd like to see you try.
You know, Mac, the last person that called her a bitch almost got his head knocked off. Fortunately, he was an idiot and tried and cheated his way to win. You, on the other hand, I'm gonna take you to the woodshed and I'm gonna bash your head with light tube after light tube.
You're gonna bash my head with light tube after light tube. Well, if it comes to that, Kato, bring it on. Because you know how I am with blood. It doesn't affect me.
Well, we'll settle this in the ring.
Yeah, and if you just magically somehow beat me at Saturday Night Riot, just know I'm coming after both those titles.
Bring it. Bring it. I am so ready.
Mac, what would it mean to you to be winner take all and have 2 hardcore championships? What would that mean to you?
Now, winner take all and have 2 hardcore championships, man, that'd be phenomenal because as far as I know, you're the only one that's held your championship, so it doesn't really mean much, does it?
Oh, I defended it to many.
You might have defended it to many, but you ain't lost it. So
Exactly.
if I magically beat you at Saturday Night Riot, I'd be the first one besides you to hold that title, right?
You would be.
But it ain't gonna happen.
I will make it happen. And you won't be interfering during the match either.
We'll see.
You see, I hold this near and dear to my heart. I earned it. I bled for this. That's why it's called the BMF Hardcore Champion. Because I'm the baddest motherfucker around. And you have to have that army behind you to take this from me, Mac.
We'll see.
Well, very quickly, speaking of armies, there's a man that wants to say something for 2 minutes that I don't know if he's a part of this army or not, but he certainly wanted to chime in. And his name is Anthony Steele.
What up, Kato?
Anthony, obviously, you're, I guess, part of the Mac Army. Were you in the Playboy Mansion? Is that what your shirt says? Were you in the Playboy Mansion? But obviously,
represent.
I hope that you're not here to talk about what was left of the vaunted Playboy magazine days, but rather, since you're a part of this army, I suppose, you have a thought or two here before we move on and let Mr. Kato finish the show on anything you'd like to say between these two deathmatch giants?
I mean, Mac 10 talks a big game, man. But if you really think I have anything for any kind of respect for Ronnie Brady's brother, aka known as Kato's local bitch, then obviously, hell no.
What do you mean?
I think I'm gonna make a prediction. I'm gonna make a prediction.
What do you want to say?
The prediction is Kato's gonna walk into Resi, beat the dog shit out of Mac 10, take Resi's hardcore championship, make it relevant again, and Mac 10's gonna go back to IWA. He's gonna go to Pro Wrestling Venom, and he's gonna go many other places without a championship, and knowing that Kato's going to be the biggest fucking target that Mac 10 has never overcame. That's my prediction. That is my prediction.
So you're telling me that Jimmy Controversy was a walk in the park, but Kato's going to basically be, in a controversial way, annihilate the deathmatch werewolf, and afterwards Mac will have to douse himself in Mountain Dew?
See, no, what I'm saying is I've seen what Mac 10's been up to since facing Jimmy Controversy. He hasn't prepared for a guy like Kato. He hasn't mentally or physically prepared for a match with Kato. He opened his mouth and he is about to insert his foot straight the fuck back in. And that's the problem with Mac 10. He speaks before he thinks. And Kato, just listening to him, Kato thinks, then speaks.
I'm in your mind, Mac.
It's a mind game, Mac, and you're losing. You're losing very badly.
Yeah, Max seems quiet. That usually Max comes on here and
exactly.
It's usually to come on after somebody or say something. But tonight, Mac 10, have you met your kryptonite in Kato?
Are you sure?
They're sitting there talking about mind games and everything else. I might just be playing a mind game and making him think that he's better than me.
But it seems like, Kato, Mac is here so much that he could collect rent on this platform. And it seems tonight that it's a rather timid Mac 10. I mean, I don't know. Has Mac seen a ghost?
Mac's seen his worst enemy, and it's going to be his worst nightmare.
I'm just sitting here thinking about the last time.
Listen, there are some that come on this platform and call themselves nightmares and the nightmare of this and that, but it seems to me like the real nightmare of the deathmatch wrestling scene is Kato, and Naomi's going to back him up, and Mac 10 could be going back to maybe coaching Xavier Thorne and dousing himself in Mountain Dew regularly. It sounds to me like this is the case.
I'm just really sitting here thinking about the first time we were in the ring when you took that gusset plate back and hit me in the balls with it. Then we turned around and we faced not at Resi, but at the High Tone at the Mud Show, Kato, and it did. It came down to a double count. So if you honestly think that it's not going to come down to another double count, you got to be kidding me. Because
you forget, I was the first one up.
You might have been the first one up, but it was still a double count.
I think it's more along the lines of not seeing his worst nightmare. I think he's seeing his future right before his very eyes. The future is telling itself already. And Meg, Kato's the narrator at this point. You're just in his story.
Well, I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, you want to see this match? You need to go to YouTube of Resurrection Wrestling. All those links are right there. We're going to put it right back up on the screen before we get to final thoughts. The Resurrection Wrestling's YouTube channel, where you can watch this match and the rest of Saturday Night Riot. And please support Resurrection Wrestling also on Patreon, TikTok, Instagram, Redbubble. Buy some merchandise and support all of these different talents here. Okay, as we're running out of time here, let's go first here. I want to give a final word for Mac 10 and a final word for Kato and Naomi to both Mac, and even if it's Anthony, same thing. But Mac, I'm going with you first. You have a final word, a final thing you want to say to Kato and Naomi.
Well, Naomi, I'm telling you, you're not going to interfere in this match. Because if you try to interfere, it's going to be a lot worse than a cookie sheet to the head.
We'll see.
Lame.
Oh, well, okay. Well, obviously we'll have to find out. But Kato, would you like to say anything in final words for Mr. Mac 10 before we let Mr. Mac leave the show?
Aww. He turned his camera on.
This the only thing I got to say is at the end of the night, not only will I hold the BMF hardcore title, but I will hold the Resurrection Championship as well. Both hardcore titles are coming home to me, and there ain't a damn thing you're going to do about it.
Well, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, I think the talking is over between these gentlemen. You're going to want to go to the Resurrection Wrestling's YouTube channel, watch the match. There's their information below. You can support Resurrection Wrestling. I'll give Kato closing thoughts here in a second, but I want to say, Mac, I'm sure we'll see you very soon. And Anthony, I'm sure we'll see you very soon. And thank you for enlightening us on what's going to come. And we'll see if it all plays out into fruition here coming up here at some point very soon in the near and distant future.
When you're done with Mac 10, Kato, hit my line. I'll give you a real challenge.
Well,
my pleasure.
Thank you very much, fellas. We'll see you soon. And before we get to closing thoughts, let me get to a few more comments from people here. Want to say hello to my good friend, Mr. JD Mercer. He says, hello, Rev. And he says, damn, the intensity was brought from Kato and Mactone. Yes, absolutely. No question about that. And hopefully they bring more intensity than the Cincinnati Reds do in the second half of the season, because the Reds have not had a good year. But different conversation for a different time. Obviously, somebody here is a big fan of yours. Kato going to drop him on his melons, and he knows it. He's already lost.
Yeah.
Somebody's here. We say hello. And thank you for tuning in.
Yeah.
Hit the sub button for us on YouTube. And JD Mersh didn't like my Reds comment. Okay. Let me get to a couple more things before we sign off. First of all, I always ask this question to people that have come on this platform. If you had one or two moments in your career that stood out most so far, what would they be?
First and foremost, my very first heavyweight championship match that I won. The heavyweight title on Ice Pro Wrestling in Milwaukee. That was the biggest standout match I had. That was when I came back out of rehab. I was in drug rehab. I got out, got clean. 3 months later, won my very first heavyweight championship match, and that was against a guy named Sidman Cochran III, who was formerly known as Chris Black.
Okay.
My standout match alone afterwards, honestly, even though I lost, it'd be with Tommy Trainwreck at IWA.
I agree that that's the match that I think that is going to put a lot more heads to where you're going to be. And I think that's representing what I think we'll see of the future of you. One more time, if you're on Instagram, that's where you can find Kato. That's where he's going to be in the ring next, in addition to Resurrection Wrestling's Saturday Night Riot show. Please support those that support us here in the community. The least you can do. And if you're a promoter out there, you want to book Kato, you want to ask him for advice, that's where you can find him. Also, information if you want to buy a ticket, you want to support the cause, please go out there and do that. So we'll put that off the screen. I want to ask you then two more questions. My second to last question is, what do you want to say to all of your fans out there that have supported you throughout the years?
Man, nothing but love to all the fans that have supported me, even through my down times, and those that know me. I greatly appreciate it. And support all your local wrestlers, man. They bust their ass in the ring. I bust my ass in the ring. It's great that you show support, buy their merchandise, help them out as much as they help you out.
Couldn't agree more and couldn't have said it any better. Those are some further links there. Let me ask you one final question. I know you've been so gracious with your time alongside Naomi, but let me ask you this last question. What final piece of advice would you give to any wrestler, whether it's in the yard, any wrestler here watching this, or anybody else out there? What would be your last piece of advice that you would give to all of them?
Study, take every advice you can. And don't take it with a grain of salt. Just understand that these people are trying to help you further your career and not put you down on a pedestal that makes you feel any less of a human being. They're helping you. They're there to push you and guide you. So take all the advice you can get and keep moving forward. Don't ever quit. If you quit, you're just going to be a loser and you're never going to amount to anything. Keep driving forward no matter how hard this business is, because it's a fucking bitch. But keep moving forward.
I couldn't agree with you more on all that. You have to keep going. It's a journey. It's a grind sometimes. But let's see. Love you, brother. You got this. And Xavier Thorne wants you to wrestle Joseph Tibbs in a death match. So.
Oh, boy.
Well, Mark 10 wanted Joseph Tibbs to kiss his ass after he lost a bet, but I'll certainly say I'm going to leave that to Joseph Tibbs, because Joseph Tibbs, he could cut my coverage of Resurrection Wrestling off, and we don't want to do that. And obviously, it's been an absolute honor, and I hope that you would maybe want to come back sometime on the show, and maybe the next time you'd like to come on this platform. We have this little thing called the Sportswire Radio Hall of Fame. We've inducted a lot of different people in there. I know you're a busy man. Maybe that would be something we could honor you with, and all the great things you've done for this sport. I hope that would be something here that we would want to consider. And also, Xavier Thorne wants to call Naomi the Hardcore Queen. So there you have that. So you're going to be the king of deathmatch wrestling throughout the scene, and she's going to be the Hardcore Queen, and she's going to prove that, by the way, on June the 15th. So obviously, that's the case. So you have been so gracious with both of you with your time. So I want to turn it over to you guys now. I want to give you the floor. Any closing thoughts, anything else you want to plug, share, or say? And I cannot thank you enough so much for this opportunity, for everything you've done for us tonight, and what you've done for this sport, this business, and just giving us the opportunity to getting to know you here tonight. And I pass the baton to both of you guys, and the floor is yours, and fire away.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for allowing us to be on your show. This was a great honor. I want to say thank you to everybody who supports hardcore and deathmatch wrestling. Honestly, without you guys supporting all of us and what we do in the ring, man, we wouldn't be here today. I want to say just keep watching Sportswire. Keep supporting Resurrection. Support Bones, who has made my entrance music. And just keep supporting everybody, man, because it's what we do. It's what you guys love from us. And from us, we just want to say thank you again.
Absolutely. And Resurrection, I especially, before we go, want to give them one more plug. That's their YouTube channel, and let's support them. Resurrection's really been a great friend to Sportswire and to the community. I mean, they've been working, obviously, with guys like yourself, Jimmy Controversy, Jesse Daniels. Obviously, Resurrection's worked with D'Angelo the Flame to allow him to work in different places. And, they've really been a part of All Wrestling Matters. And I can't say enough about what Joseph Tibbs and Ronnie Brady have done for their friendships to this platform, and always being so generous and gracious to us. And I just can't thank them enough. So please, let's support them. They're on YouTube. Check them out. This is where you'll watch Saturday Night Riot. And also, please support Kato. He's on Instagram. I put up his link throughout the show. I also have him on Facebook. You're on YouTube. You can watch some of his footage. Support this man. This man's going to do even bigger and better things ahead, and we'll see what he does at Saturday Night Riot. Final comment here. For real, Naomi has inspired my wife, Mrs. Viper, Ray Thorne, into doing hardcore matches. Tom called the ambulance. Well, I hope the ambulance will be on site. So if Mrs. Viper is going to be wrestling, I hope that the ambulance is there, and hopefully Mrs. Thorne doesn't wrestle Naomi because Naomi has Kato at her side, and I think Mr. Thorne is obviously getting ready for other things. But it has been
I do appreciate the inspiration, though. That's awesome. Have fun.
Yeah, no, honestly, and you guys have been an inspiration because there's no doubt that there's somebody out here watching this that is, probably heard of you guys, but now is seeing you for the first time, and they say, you know what, wow, really great story, killing it out there in the ring, and what a story, and you just keep going, keep working, and the grind will continue, but you'll never know where it'll take you, and I think it's living proof from you guys. Just thank you for all that you've done for this sport. Thank you for everything. I will send you guys the certificate when we're off the air, and I'm looking forward to the match of the Saturday Night Riot. I'm looking forward to watching you guys more often, and I'll certainly let Mr. Controversy know on Instagram by some of the things you said about him. He loves that stuff. I can tell you for sure. I can promise you on that, and we'll see about some other places. And thank you for all that you do, and I hope to see you guys very soon in the near and distant future.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, that was Kato, who is the BMF Hardcore Champion, and Naomi, and they're going to be in the ring coming up on June the 15th in Kansas, but they're also going to be in the ring coming up for Resurrection Wrestling's Saturday Night Riot. They're going to be wrestling Mac 10. Kato is for that Hardcore Championship of Resurrection in a winner-take-all hardcore title match, and my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, where all wrestling matters, and I'll be back here tomorrow at 10 o'clock Central Standard Time with Atomic Titan, who's called himself the Hardcore King, but I don't think Kato was that impressed. But I'm sure Atomic Titan will give his side of the story on that, plus some. But if you're out there, please support Resurrection Wrestling. All their links are in the description below. And also, I think Mr. Titan said that he loves you guys both. So Mr. Titan just wanted to say that it was all good fun. We were just obviously saying that Mr. Titan is saying that he doesn't really want to wrestle you. He'll let Mac 10 do it for you. So we love Mr. Titan out there. I just want to say he is my good friend. I do bow down to my Hardcore King. But if you're out there on sportswireradio.org, hit that like button for us, and we'll be back tomorrow. And also, Xavier Thorne said thank you, and thank you, everybody. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, on the number one global reaction that is Sportswire Radio, where all wrestling matters. And thank you to Kato, Naomi, and we'll see everybody soon.